Hello and welcome to another property-focused podcast from Timberwise. My name is Mark Edwards, Chief Executive of Timberwise. The purpose of these series of podcasts is to look at various aspects of property care and share with you our extensive expertise gained over 4 decades. Today, we're going to look at rising damp with Timberwise Operations Director Neil Hartley. So Neil, where do we begin?
Well, Mark, I think we should begin by clarifying that rising damp does actually exist. Reading certain articles in a number of newspapers, one would think that it's an urban myth. What journalists have failed to appreciate, though, is the extensive research carried out over many years by the BRE. They clearly show that rising damp does exist.
Now that you've clarified that it does exist, what exactly is rising damp?
It's the rise of water from the ground up through the walls. Basically, the wall acts like a wick. Simply think of suction. If the suction of the wall is greater than the suction of the ground, then water will rise. Once rising damp occurs, depending on the suction, it can rise to about 2 metres. However, generally it's more common to rise to 1.2 metres or less.
What problems can people expect with rising damp?
Rising damp causes problems of decorative spoiling and especially rot in skirtings, floor joists, floorboards and wall plates where present. Significantly though, groundwater salts will be deposited within the masonry and especially within the plasters and decorative finishes. A proportion of these salts are hygroscopic.
Hygroscopic? What do you mean, Neil?
I knew you were going to ask me that one, Mark. This means that they can absorb water from the air. This will cause future problems in that if the rising damp is stopped, materials may still remain damp solely due to the hygroscopic nature of the contaminated material. Any decorative finish applied to these contaminated substrates would almost certainly spoil with time.
So, now we know what causes rising damp and the problems associated with it, what is the best way to treat it?
But prior to introducing any water control methods, Mark, it is vital to correctly diagnose the actual source of dampness. Is it rising damp, condensation, penetrating damp, or simply wall floor junction bridging? Get the diagnosis wrong and remediation is likely to be wrongly specified. The dampness will then persist and any costs incurred in treating the wrong dampness will be totally wasted. It is therefore crucial that the specialist surveyor is fully trained and holds the industry recognised CSRT qualification.
So correct identification of the damp problem certainly is a necessity then.
That's right, Mark. Otherwise, any work carried out could end up failing and the damp issue coming back.
What's the best way to treat a rising damp problem?
To effect a dry, non-spoiling, decorative surface free from both water and salt contamination, the control of rising damp has to be a 2-part process. Part 1 is the installation of a damp-proof course into the wall to control the rising water. A number of systems are used depending on the construction of the wall, including chemical injection, mortar injection, or electro-osmotic systems. Part 2 is then the removal and the replacement of the potentially salt-contaminated plasters and finishes. This is undertaken to form a long-term uncontaminated surface and prevent any residual moisture or salts causing future spoiling. The importance of the removal of the old plaster and the reinstatement with the new specialist plaster cannot be understated. In some instances, a cavity drain membrane may be specified, particularly when highly contaminated wall surfaces are encountered, or indeed when fast-track finishing is required.
Well, thank you, Neil, for sharing your expertise with us today. You've been listening to a Timberwise Property Care podcast, providing you with helpful advice for caring for your property. Thank you.